Donald Trump has picked that 70-year-old man you just saw as the new head of the U.S. health system, which gives him control over a budget of $1.7 trillion, and he's using it to start an all-out war against the ruthless food and medicine mafia. And in today's video, I'm going to tell you that if he wins, your food will never taste the same, and your next generation might not have to take so many prescription drugs. Now, if you know anything about RFK Jr., you know that the man hates Big Pharma and the unhealthy food brands that have been exploiting Americans for decades now. His entire presidential campaign has been about making Americans healthy again, and even before Trump won, he was freely telling us the kinds of plans he has once he gets control of the American health system. For instance, in one of his late October tweets, the man wrote, "The FDA's war on public health is about to end. This includes its aggressive suppression of psychedelics, peptides, stem cells, raw milk, hyperbaric therapies, chelating compounds, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, vitamins, clean foods, sunshine, exercise, nutraceuticals, and anything else that advances human health and can't be patented by Pharma." If you work for the FDA and are part of this corrupt system, I have two messages for you. Number one, preserve your records, and number two, pack your bags. He also released a viral video explaining just how unhealthy our food has become.
This is what most Americans innocently put into their bodies these days, and most alarmingly, into the bodies of their children.
In the video, he goes into talks about some popular snacks and cereals that, according to him, contain some very harmful ingredients, but the FDA isn't doing anything about it.
When it's the government that approves the poisons in our food, a few people get very, very rich, and the toxins end up in every supermarket aisle.
And this isn't the first time he's talked about how we have failed as a nation to protect our children from these greedy corporations. Just listen to what his stance has been on the subject for decades now.
Over the 20,000 generations of human beings that have lived on this planet before us, the primary biological drive and spiritual drive has been to make sure that their kids were safe. And it's extraordinary today that these profit-making corporations have used their capacity to control our government and to control the media to turn us all against that most fundamental biological drive. We are destroying our kids, and we're doing it because we're being manipulated to do it through all of the institutions of government. If a foreign nation did this to our country, we would consider an act of war. The appeal that I would make to Americans is that there's no such thing as Republican children or Democratic children. We can take our country back from these industries.
Now, even though Donald Trump might not agree with many of Kennedy's libertarian values and beliefs, on the issue of health, it looks like RFK has Trump's full backing.
But we're also going to make America healthy again. As many of you know, we have talked a lot about getting dangerous chemicals out of our environment and out of our food supply. Today I'm adding that we are going to tackle the exploding rates of childhood depression, suicide, and pediatric cancer. We have numbers that other countries don't have. We don't just want to manage these problems, we want to prevent them from happening in the first place. I will assemble the best and brightest minds, including Robert F. Kennedy Jr., RFK, with the goal of reducing by 50% within 4 years the rates of childhood cancer, depression, and suicide, and ultimately to end these epidemics entirely. They are indeed epidemics.
Now, you can hate the guy all you want, but you can see why even Democrats voted for him. He seems to be the only presidential candidate who wants to make our children healthy, and for this job, he has probably picked the most aggressive and relentless person he could find.
Another one who's another great mind and a great guy and so popular, and I think he's right. He wants to make people healthy. It's driven him pretty wild over the last number of years, and the Democrats didn't treat him well. He was doing fantastically well, and I think they came out with some rule that you had to do this, Mike. You had to get 70 or 75% of the vote to qualify to be in the primary. That was a pretty tough thing to get. And he was doing incredibly well, and he decided he can't do it, went independent. Now he's with us all the way. And today I nominated him for, I guess, if you like health and if you like people that live a long time, it's the most important position, RFK Jr.
Now, we've seen what RFK plans to do with the FDA and other such institutions, but let me show you how these public organizations are responding to his warnings. Many FDA employees are straight up threatening to quit now that they will have to answer to RFK Jr. They have even mobilized their political friends in Washington to launch a smear campaign against RFK, and that's why you'll find plenty of politicians who are saying stuff like this.
I'm very, very concerned that someone that could be entrusted with our nation's health, RFK Jr., has recently said, and I quote, that he plans to have a big role in the administration as it relates to health, and has just days ago pledged to gut the NIH, firing hundreds of scientists and researchers on day one. And I'm going to show, this is from ABC News, the headline that just appeared a few days ago, which, if we're talking about pandemic preparedness, and with all due respect to the committee and the work, the fact that we're considering to bring somebody on with no scientific or medical credentials, who's falsely claimed for decades that vaccines cause autism, who has, quite frankly, said just outrageous comments about science and medicine, that this person would come in to gut the NIH, I think is shameful. I think is shameful.
You know, agencies like the FDA would have received some support from the public if they were not involved in so much controversy. I've already explained to you how our corrupt healthcare system has allowed a company to sell its life-saving medicine at a price that's 13 times more than what they sell it for in the UK. And now we find out that we've been taking cold and flu medication for nearly 50 years, only to find out it doesn't work at all.
All of this stuff has been on the shelves for decades.
Since 1976.
We've been taking it, imagining that it's been working, but what the FDA is saying today is actually it never did work?
It never did work.
Now, they have already allowed companies to sell this product for decades, and still the FDA is not ready to ban it. In fact, in a statement, the FDA said the proposed order is not based on safety concerns, and it is not final yet, which means companies can still market over-the-counter drugs containing oral phenylephrine for now. Now, we can see why the FDA might want to keep RFK Jr. away from our healthcare system, but why are all these liberal media outlets launching these campaigns against the man? I mean, these woke media companies were the ones who were telling us just how bad our food is, and now we're seeing them defend the same ultra-processed food and big pharma. This makes you wonder what in the world is going on. Well, luckily, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. also explains why the legacy media is uniting against his policies.
Now, I would look at actually getting rid of the pharmaceutical advertisements on television. Prior to 1997, they were not on television. And there's only 2 countries in the world that are where pharmaceutical companies can do direct-to-consumer advertising on TV. And one is New Zealand, the other is the United States. And
wow, I didn't know that.
We're paying much more for drugs than anybody else. We take many more of them than anybody else in the world. We spend twice on healthcare as people spend in Europe, and we have the worst health outcomes in the world. We're 79th in the world.
Well, it turns out it's just about money and profits, which dictate what these news outlets print and show their audience. Imagine a world where they cannot advertise all these medications and extremely unhealthy food products to our kids. Well, you don't have to imagine, actually. In most developed countries, you will never see a drug ad on television, but that still happens in the land of the free for some reason. And you only have to look at a couple of lists to see how this greed is making us sick, quite literally taking away years from our lives. According to the 2024 National Health Index, we are at number 66 on a list of the healthiest countries in the world. And yes, we are miles behind Russia and especially Iran, even though we are supposed to be the most powerful country in the world. We are also behind every single developed nation in the average lifespan chart, which is not surprising when you find out that 20% of our produce has unhealthy levels of pesticides, and even most of our baby food is not fit for consumption. And there are companies that can sell some of the unhealthiest food products without any clear warning to the consumers.
My friends, this is a pumpkin swirl frozen coffee. Who the thought it was a good idea to put this on the menu because this drink has 185 grams of sugar in here. How much is it? It's this much. It's 46 teaspoons of sugar. To give you another perspective, the amount of sugar in there is equal to 14 glazed donuts. Plus, there's no pumpkin in here. It's artificial flavors. There's 12 mentions of sugar and high fructose corn syrup in here. There's 930 calories and 194 carbs. 2/3 of us are already type 2 diabetic or pre-diabetic. If America runs on this, we're
And this isn't a Republican or Democrat problem. It's a national crisis, and I'm glad that people are standing with RFK Jr. on issues such as banning carcinogenic dyes from our foods. Let's just hope he actually gets a chance to do what he plans to do without getting derailed. That's going to do it for today's video. If you enjoyed this content, please subscribe to the channel. As always, I truly appreciate you taking the time to watch this video, and I hope to see you on the next one.